In the heart of Transylvania, in the 19th century, a decrepit and abandoned castle loomed like a shadowy sentinel against the ominous, moonlit sky. Its towering turrets and crumbling walls stood as a testament to a forgotten era, a place where secrets and malevolence festered. This is the tale of Dr. Victor Helsing, a renowned vampire hunter, and his fateful encounter with Count Vladislaus, an ancient and cunning vampire. The night was as black as pitch when Dr. Helsing received an urgent message from a mysterious source. Whispers of a vampire threat had reached him, tales of villagers vanishing into the Transylvanian night, their lifeless bodies discovered drained of blood. Dr. Helsing, driven by a lifelong mission to eradicate the undead, could not ignore the call for help. With his loyal horse and a satchel filled with crucifixes, garlic, and a gleaming silver dagger, Dr. Helsing embarked on a treacherous journey to the foreboding castle. As he approached the decaying fortress, a chilling wind rustled the skeletal remains of the trees, their gnarled branches clawing at the moonlit sky. The castle's massive wooden doors creaked open as if beckoning him inside. Dr. Helsing cautiously entered, his boots echoing on the cold, stone floor. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the flickering candlelight that lined the ancient corridor. It was a place frozen in time, filled with the whispers of long-dead servants and the mournful cries of souls forever trapped. Deeper into the castle he ventured, guided by an eerie, ethereal light that seemed to draw him ever forward. At last, he reached the heart of the castle, a grand chamber adorned with cobwebs and crumbling tapestries. In the center, sitting upon a throne-like chair, was Count Vladislaus, his eyes like twin embers of crimson fire. "Dr. Helsing, I presume," the Count purred, his voice a seductive melody that sent shivers down the hunter's spine. Dr. Helsing steeled himself, clutching the silver dagger hidden beneath his coat. "You are the vampire that plagues this land, Count Vladislaus." The Count's lips curled into a wicked smile, revealing glistening fangs. "Indeed, I am. But I did not summon you here for a mere confrontation. No, Dr. Helsing, I have a proposition." With a wave of his hand, the chamber's torches dimmed, plunging the room into near darkness. Dr. Helsing's heart raced as he felt the walls closing in, the air growing heavy with the Count's sinister presence. "Join me," the Count whispered, his voice wrapping around the hunter like a vice. "Together, we could rule as immortals. Imagine the power we could wield." Dr. Helsing's resolve wavered for a moment, but the memories of the innocent villagers he had sworn to protect surged within him. Never, as if in response to his defiance, the chamber erupted in chaos. The walls seemed to shift, revealing hidden passages and trapdoors. Dr. Helsing was thrust into a deadly game of cat and mouse as he navigated the treacherous maze, always one step behind the cunning vampire. Each corridor led to another, each door opening to a new horror. The castle seemed to feed on Dr. Helsing's fear, twisting and contorting itself to confound and ensnare him. The Count's laughter echoed through the twisting passages, a haunting melody that never ceased. Hours turned into days as Dr. Helsing pressed on, his determination unyielding. He uncovered the castle's darkest secrets, its hidden crypts filled with the remains of countless victims, their final moments etched into the cold stone walls. At last, Dr. Helsing found himself standing before the castle's grand crypt, its massive doors beckoning him. He pushed them open, revealing the Count's lair. There, atop a stone altar, lay the vampire's coffin. With a triumphant gleam in his eye, Dr. Helsing approached the coffin, ready to end the vampire's reign of terror once and for all. But as he raised his dagger, the coffin lid flew open, and the Count emerged, his eyes aflame with rage. Their battle was fierce and relentless, a struggle between the forces of good and evil. The crypt echoed with the clash of steel and the cries of the damned. In the end, it was Dr. Helsing who prevailed, driving the silver dagger through the Count's heart. As the ancient vampire disintegrated into ash, the castle trembled and began to crumble around Dr. Helsing. With the vampire's demise, the malevolent magic that held the castle together was broken. Dr. Helsing narrowly escaped the collapsing fortress, emerging into the pale light of dawn. He watched as the castle, once a place of darkness and dread, was consumed by the earth, leaving nothing but a desolate mound of rubble. The eternal struggle between good and evil had come to a fateful end, and Dr. Helsing knew that the seductive power of darkness had been vanquished. But as he rode away from the ruins, he couldn't shake the feeling that the cost of vengeance had been higher than he could ever have imagined, and that in this deadly game, the line between hunter and hunted had blurred beyond recognition. In the heart of the Carpathian Mountains, a secluded village lay shrouded in an eternal mist. Modern-day life had scarcely touched this remote hamlet, where ancient legends whispered through the fog. It's here that our tale begins, with a skeptical journalist named Alina and a charismatic vampire named Count Dragomir. Alina had heard the rumors of the village's haunted history, and she couldn't resist the allure of a sensational story. Armed with her camera and notepad, she arrived in the village determined to expose the local vampire legend as nothing more than superstitious nonsense. The villagers, however, greeted her with wary eyes and hushed tones. They spoke of the vampire, a creature of the night that had haunted their lives for generations. With a smile on her face, Elena interviewed the villagers, believing their stories to be nothing more than folklore. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere in the village shifted. An eerie hush descended, and the mist grew thicker, wrapping around Elena like a sinister cloak. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something ancient and malevolent lurked in the shadows. It was then that she first saw him, a man who seemed to materialize from the fog itself. Tall and impeccably dressed, with piercing eyes that seemed to hold a hidden truth. It was Count Dragomir, the enigmatic figure at the heart of the legends. "Ah, you must be Elena," he purred, his voice smooth as velvet. "I've heard so much about you." Elena's skepticism faltered as she stood before the charismatic Count. He exuded an otherworldly charm that seemed to cast a spell on her. She found herself drawn to him, unable to resist his magnetic presence. They spoke late into the night, with Count Dragomir revealing tantalizing fragments of his own history. He claimed to be a relic of a bygone era, cursed with immortality and a thirst for knowledge. Elena's journalistic curiosity warred with her growing attraction to this mysterious stranger. As the night wore on, Count Dragomir extended an invitation to his ancestral home, an imposing mansion nestled on the outskirts of the village. He promised Elena the answers to her questions, an exclusive interview that would make her career. Despite the lingering doubts, she couldn't resist the temptation. The journey to the mansion was shrouded in fog, the road twisting and turning like a serpent through the ancient forest. Elena's heart pounded with each step closer to the enigmatic vampire's lair. She couldn't help but wonder if her skepticism had led her into a trap. Upon entering the mansion, the atmosphere shifted once more. Candlelit hallways seemed to stretch on endlessly, their shadows dancing with secrets. Portraits of Count Dragomir's ancestors lined the walls, their eyes following Elena's every move. As they delved deeper into the mansion, Count Dragomir revealed more of his past. He spoke of centuries spent in pursuit of forbidden knowledge, of the loneliness that came with immortality, and the allure of the night. Elena found herself captivated, unable to resist his story. But as they descended into the bowels of the mansion, Elena's skepticism began to resurface. She couldn't ignore the creeping sense of danger that clung to the air. It was then that she stumbled upon a hidden chamber, filled with ancient tomes and artifacts. Among the relics, she found a chilling revelation, the journal of a centuries-old vampire, detailing the price of immortality and the darkness that consumed those who embraced it. It was a stark contrast to the charismatic figure before her. Count Dragomir's true intentions became clear as the realization dawned on Elena. She had walked into the lair of a vampire with a hidden agenda, and she was now his unwitting prey. A race against time began as Elena fought to escape the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. The Count pursued her relentlessly, his true, monstrous form revealed as his veneer of charm shattered. He was a creature of the night, and Elena was the object of his insatiable hunger. Elena's skepticism had led her to the heart of a living nightmare, where the clash of belief and disbelief became a fight for survival. She navigated the maze-like mansion, finding hidden passages and traps that seemed designed to ensnare her. The night was a cacophony of terror as Elena evaded the Count's relentless pursuit. Candles flickered in the darkness, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to reach for her. She was trapped in a world where the supernatural was all too real. In a heart-pounding climax, Elena finally reached the mansion's exit, the first light of dawn breaking through the fog. The Count's anguished howl echoed through the forest as he retreated into the darkness. Elena had survived the night, but the allure of the supernatural and the consequences of her curiosity had left an indelible mark. She had come face to face with the very legends she had sought to debunk. And in the end, the line between belief and skepticism had blurred into a nightmarish reality. In the sultry embrace of 1920s New Orleans, where jazz filled the night air and the scent of magnolias hung heavy, there stood a grand, Gothic mansion. Its ivy-covered walls concealed a world of secrets and hidden desires, a place where Lady Genevieve, a debutante with a dark secret, would be drawn into a web of intrigue, romance, and danger. The mansion, known as the Blackthorn Manor, was a jewel in the city's crown, its towering spires and ornate balconies a testament to opulence. It was within these decadent walls that Lady Genevieve moved, a vision of beauty and grace, a mask of innocence concealing her deepest desires. The city's elite gathered at Blackthorn Manor for lavish masquerade balls, where the veil of propriety slipped away, revealing the passions that lurked beneath. It was at one such ball that Lady Genevieve first laid eyes on him, a man who exuded a magnetic charm that drew her in like a moth to a flame. He was Lord Sebastian, dashing and enigmatic, the embodiment of forbidden temptation. As the night swirled around them, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian danced together, their steps an intimate tangle of desire. She could feel his eyes on her, his gaze like a caress that sent shivers down her spine. They moved through the ballroom as if they were the only two souls in the world, their connection electric. In the days that followed, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian's romance blossomed in the shadow of the grand mansion. Their love was a forbidden one, a secret affair hidden from the prying eyes of society. She was drawn to his charisma, his knowledge of art and culture, his tales of distant lands. But as the weeks passed, Lady Genevieve began to notice peculiarities in her lover. His aversion to daylight, his strange appetite for rare meats, and his chilling, hypnotic gaze. She dismissed these oddities, convincing herself that love could conquer any darkness. It was during a sultry night beneath the dripping moss of the bayou that the truth began to reveal itself. In a secluded glade, Lady Genevieve stumbled upon a voodoo priestess who whispered cryptic warnings of the dangers that lurked within her lover's heart. The priestess spoke of a curse, a dark and insatiable hunger that could never be satisfied. Lady Genevieve's heart sank as she realized the truth. Lord Sebastian was a vampire, a creature of the night who craved the very essence of life itself. Terrified but determined, Lady Genevieve confronted Lord Sebastian with her discovery. He did not deny the truth, for he could not. Instead, he confessed to his vampiric nature, his centuries-long existence, and his insatiable thirst for blood. Their love, once passionate and all-consuming, became a battleground of conflicting desires. Lord Sebastian yearned for Lady Genevieve's immortal companionship, while she clung to the fading hope of a normal life. The mansion that had once been a palace of dreams became a prison of shadows. As Mardi Gras approached, the city of New Orleans buzzed with excitement. But for Lady Genevieve, it marked a deadly deadline. On Fat Tuesday, when the revelry reached its peak, Lord Sebastian's power would be at its zenith, and he would demand her eternal allegiance. Desperation drove Lady Genevieve to seek the aid of the voodoo priestess once more. With her guidance, she hatched a dangerous plan to break free of Lord Sebastian's grasp. She would confront him during the wild and chaotic celebration of Mardi Gras, where the streets thronged with revelers and the night was shrouded in chaos. On that fateful night, as the city danced and sang, Lady Genevieve and Lord Sebastian faced off amidst the festivities. The atmosphere was electric, a cacophony of music and laughter that masked the tension between them. In the shadowy alleyways of the French Quarter, Lady Genevieve revealed her voodoo-enchanted dagger, a weapon imbued with the power to destroy even a vampire. She plunged it into Lord Sebastian's heart, and as he crumbled to dust, the truth of his monstrous nature was revealed to all. But the victory came at a heavy cost. Lady Genevieve had sacrificed her love, her forbidden desires, and her own innocence to break free from the corrupting influence of power. The mansion that had once held her in its seductive grip now lay empty and forlorn, its grandeur fading like a wistful memory. In the end, Lady Genevieve had unmasked the deception of appearances, the allure of the supernatural, and the cost of embracing forbidden desires. She had danced with the darkness and emerged from the shadows, forever changed by the seductive, ominous, and mysterious world of 1920s New Orleans. In the desolate heart of the Balkans, amidst a small and remote village frozen in the 18th century, a profound darkness lingered. It was here that our story begins, with Father Mikhail, a devout priest, and Nadia, a young woman cursed by a vampire's bite. The village, nestled among towering mountains and dense forests, had known suffering and torment for generations. The villagers whispered of a vampire that prowled the night, claiming victims and sowing terror. But it was Nadia, a once beloved member of their community, who had become the embodiment of their darkest fears. Father Mikhail arrived in the village, a figure of faith and solace, bearing a heavy crucifix and the weight of his calling. He had been summoned to exorcise the vampire's curse from Nadia, to free her from the malevolent grip that held her soul. As he ventured deeper into the village, the air grew heavy with the weight of ancient sins. The houses were decrepit, the streets overgrown with weeds, and the shadows seemed to whisper the secrets of generations long past. Father Mikhail sensed the darkness that clung to every corner, and his heart filled with trepidation. In the dim light of the village church, Father Mikhail met Nadia. She was a pale and fragile figure, her eyes haunted by the horrors she had witnessed and committed under the vampire's curse. Her once joyful laughter had been replaced by mournful cries that echoed through the night. With trembling hands, Father Mikhail began the exorcism ritual, the ancient words of faith and salvation pouring from his lips. But as he spoke the holy verses, Nadia's body contorted, her eyes turned black as night, and her voice became a sinister, otherworldly chorus. It was then that Father Mikhail realized the true horror of the curse. It was not just the work of a vampire. It was a malevolent entity that had taken root within Nadia, a darkness that fed on the village's suffering and despair. The exorcism became a harrowing battle between faith and doubt, good and evil. Father Mikhail clung to his beliefs, even as the malevolent force unleashed haunting visions that tested his resolve. He saw the faces of the damned, the tormented souls that had fallen victim to the vampire's curse. But he pressed on, determined to save Nadia's soul. As the night wore on, Father Mikhail's faith was pushed to its limits. He felt the weight of the village's sins, the darkness that had festered for centuries. It threatened to consume him, to shatter his beliefs, but he fought on. In a final, climactic confrontation, Father Mikhail and the malevolent force battled for control of Nadia's soul. The church trembled, its walls cracking, and the heavens themselves seemed to weep. It was a struggle that transcended the physical, a battle of wills between the priest and the ancient evil. In the end, Father Mikhail's unwavering faith prevailed. With a blinding burst of light, the malevolent force was banished, leaving Nadia free from the curse that had tormented her. She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Her soul cleansed of the darkness that had consumed her. But the victory came at a cost. The village lay in ruins, its sins laid bare for all to see. Father Mikhail had saved Nadia's soul, but the weight of the village's past sins had taken a toll on his own faith. He knew that the darkness within us all was a force that could never truly be vanquished. As Father Mikhail left the village, the air hung heavy with the weight of the past, the bleak and oppressive atmosphere unchanged. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but he could never forget the haunting visions and the malevolent force that had tested his faith to its limits. In the remote village of the Balkans, where ancient sins and the darkness within us all still lingered, Father Mikhail's exorcism had brought a momentary reprieve, but he knew that the battle between faith and doubt, good and evil, would continue to rage on, a testament to the enduring human struggle against the darkness that lurks in the shadows. Amidst the unforgiving waves of the North Atlantic, on a remote island shrouded in mist and legend, stood a Gothic castle that had borne witness to centuries of secrets. It was a place of isolation and mystery, where the winds howled like mournful ghosts, and the salted air held the taste of bitter longing. In the heart of this melancholic fortress, our tale unfolds, starring Professor Jonathan Graves, an occult scholar, and Countess Isolde, a vampire cursed with a tragic past. Professor Graves, a seeker of forbidden knowledge, had ventured to the castle in search of the secrets of immortality. He was driven by an insatiable curiosity, his mind thirsty for the mysteries that lay hidden within the castle's ancient texts and cryptic manuscripts. He believed that the key to eternal life might be found amid the shadows of its haunting corridors. As the days turned into weeks, Professor Graves delved deeper into the castle's labyrinthine library. His candlelit nights were spent poring over manuscripts filled with eerie poetry, haunting incantations, and cryptic diagrams that hinted at the very secrets of life and death. But the more he searched, the more he became consumed by a sense of melancholy that seemed to seep from the very walls of the castle. It was during one of these solitary nights that he first saw her, a vision of ethereal beauty that appeared in the moonlight. Countess Isolde, her porcelain skin kissed by the pale glow of the night, had the aura of both tragedy and timeless allure. Her presence was like a haunting melody that echoed through the castle's ancient halls. Their first encounter was a fateful one. As she approached him with a melancholic smile, her eyes filled with an enigmatic sadness. Countess Isolde had been born into a world of darkness, cursed with immortality and an insatiable thirst for blood. She had watched the centuries pass, her existence marked by the weight of her own solitude. As Professor Graves and Countess Isolde spent more time together, their connection deepened. Theirs was a love that transcended death, a forbidden romance that defied the boundaries of mortality. In each other's arms, they found solace and passion, their hearts intertwined in a dance of longing and despair. But their love came at a cost. The castle itself seemed to resent their union, its walls echoing with the whispers of ghosts who had borne witness to countless tragedies. And the knowledge that Professor Graves sought was more elusive than ever, as the lines between love and obsession blurred into one. As the days turned into months, Countess Isolde shared with Professor Graves her own tragic history. She spoke of a cursed love that had shattered her heart, of letters written in blood and the haunting poetry of a love that had been lost to time. It was a tale of pain and longing that mirrored their own doomed romance. But as their love deepened, so did the darkness that clung to the castle. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord. Whispers of lost souls filled the air, and Professor Graves began to have haunting visions. He saw the inevitable fate that awaited them, a reckoning with destiny that would test the very limits of their love. The climax of their story came on a stormy night, when the castle itself seemed to rebel against their love. Thunder rumbled overhead, and the winds howled like vengeful spirits. Professor Graves and Countess Isolde stood before an ancient altar, their hearts heavy with the weight of their choices. In a tearful farewell, they declared their love for each other, knowing that their passion could only end in tragedy. The castle seemed to respond, its very foundation shaking with grief and fury. And as the storm raged outside, the lovers embraced for the last time, their souls bound together for eternity. With a final, anguished cry, the castle crumbled around them, burying their love beneath its ancient stones. The winds carried their story across the North Atlantic, a tale of love transcending death, the pursuit of knowledge at any cost, and the inevitability of fate. And so, the Gothic castle on the remote island remained a monument to their love, its ruins haunted by the echoes of their passion and the melancholic atmosphere of a love that had defied time itself. For in the end, their love had become an eternal tale, a bittersweet reminder that even in the darkest corners of existence, love could still shine like a distant star. in the heart of a modern, decaying urban setting. A forgotten cemetery lay hidden from the bustling city that surrounded it. This was a place where the living rarely ventured, and the dead were left to rest in solitude. Among the tombstones and crumbling mausoleums, our story begins with Sarah, a young cemetery caretaker, and Victor, a vengeful vampire seeking retribution. Sarah had taken up the solemn task of caring for the cemetery, an old and forgotten plot of land that had seen better days. Overgrown with weeds and obscured by the shadows of forgotten memories, the cemetery held secrets that had long been buried. Sarah's routine maintenance often led her to uncovering graves that had been swallowed by time, their occupants fading into obscurity. One fateful day, as Sarah toiled beneath the gray sky, her shovel struck something hard and unyielding. She uncovered a long-forgotten grave, its tombstone chipped and weathered by years of neglect. The name etched into the stone sent a chill down her spine. Victor. As Sarah continued her work, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the very air around her had grown heavy with an oppressive presence. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the wind carried a whisper that echoed through the cemetery like a mournful lament. Unbeknownst to Sarah, her actions had stirred something that had slumbered for centuries. Beneath the earth, in the depths of the forgotten grave, Victor had been awakened from his long, dreamless slumber. He had been buried alive, betrayed by those he once called family, and left to rot in the cold embrace of death. Now he hungered for vengeance. As night fell, Victor emerged from his tomb, his body bearing the pallor of death and his eyes aflame with an unholy hunger. He had become a creature of the night, a vampire seeking retribution for the betrayal that had condemned him to an eternity of darkness. Victor's pursuit of Sarah was relentless. He stalked her through the shadowy cemetery, his footsteps echoing like whispers in the night. His thirst for blood had become an insatiable craving, and Sarah had unwittingly become the object of his dark desires. Sarah, unaware of the terror that lurked in the darkness, continued her work in the cemetery. But as the days passed, she could not ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled over her. Strange occurrences plagued her. The sound of whispers in the wind, the flickering of candles in the night, and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. One fateful evening, as Sarah was locking the cemetery gates, she felt a presence behind her. She turned to find Victor standing there, his eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. She knew then that she was not alone in the cemetery, and the realization filled her with a bone-chilling fear. A desperate battle ensued in the shadowy cemetery, as Sarah fought for her life against the relentless vampire. She brandished a cross, its holy power driving Victor back, but he was unyielding in his pursuit. Their struggle took them through the decaying tombstones and crumbling mausoleums, a chilling dance of predator and prey. As the battle raged on, the line between victim and perpetrator began to blur. Sarah's fear gave way to a burning rage, and she fought with a ferocity she never knew she possessed. Victor, driven by centuries of hatred and betrayal, found himself drawn to Sarah's strength and defiance. In a shocking twist, the two adversaries found themselves locked in an unexpected embrace, their lips meeting in a desperate kiss that transcended life and death. It was a union forged in the crucible of fear and desire, a moment where the boundaries of love and horror blurred into one. But as dawn approached, Victor's vampiric nature betrayed him. He recoiled from the first rays of sunlight, his body writhing in agony as he crumbled to ash. Sarah, exhausted and shaken, watched in disbelief as the vampire met his final fate. The decaying cemetery bore witness to their turbulent encounter, its tombstones standing as silent sentinels to the horrors that had unfolded within its shadowy confines. Sarah, forever marked by the night's events, left the cemetery with a heavy heart, knowing that the sins of the past had returned to haunt the present, and that the line between life and death was thinner than she had ever imagined. Amid the unforgiving beauty of the Swiss Alps, where snow-capped peaks reached towards the heavens, there stood a desolate mountain lodge, forgotten by time. This was a place of isolation and chilling secrets, where the winds howled like the tormented souls of the lost. In this frozen abyss, our story unfolds, with Dr. Evelyn Weber, a brilliant scientist, and Count Erich, a vampire consumed by a thirst for knowledge. Dr. Weber, a woman of unwavering ambition, had embarked on an expedition to study the rare alpine flora that thrived in the harsh conditions of the Swiss Alps. Armed with her scientific instruments and a heart filled with curiosity, she arrived at the remote mountain lodge, perched precariously on the edge of a cliff. The lodge was a stark contrast to the pristine beauty of the surrounding landscape. Its walls bore the scars of time, and the interior was shrouded in darkness, lit only by the cold light of the moon. Dr. Weber sensed that there was more to the lodge than met the eye, a history of secrets and scientific endeavors long hidden from the world. As the days passed, Dr. Weber's studies brought her deeper into the lodge's mysteries. She discovered hidden chambers filled with macabre experiments, alchemical symbols etched into the walls, and arcane texts that spoke of forbidden knowledge. It was clear that the lodge had once been a place of scientific curiosity, but the true nature of its experiments remained elusive. In her quest for answers, Dr. Weber uncovered the existence of Count Erich, a vampire who had been trapped within the lodge for centuries. He was a creature of both science and the supernatural, driven by an insatiable curiosity that had led him to tamper with the boundaries of life and death. Count Erich had once been a brilliant scientist himself, a man who had sought to unlock the secrets of immortality. But his experiments had gone horribly wrong, and he had become a vampire, a being neither fully alive nor dead, cursed to roam the lodge for eternity. Dr. Weber's arrival had awakened Count Erich's thirst for knowledge once more. He saw in her a kindred spirit, a fellow seeker of the unknown. He revealed to her his own experiments, his desperate attempts to bridge the gap between science and the supernatural. He sought to understand the very essence of life, to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. But as Dr. Weber delved deeper into Count Erich's experiments, she began to realize the true horror of his ambitions. He had created abominations, creatures that defied the laws of nature, and his quest for knowledge had come at a terrible cost. The lodge itself seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, a dark force that threatened to consume them both. As the truth of Count Erich's experiments came to light, Dr. Weber found herself in a desperate struggle for survival. The vampire's insatiable curiosity had led him to tamper with forces beyond human comprehension, and now those forces threatened to engulf them both. In a chilling climax, Dr. Weber and Count Erich faced off in the heart of the lodge's hidden laboratory, surrounded by the artifacts of their unholy experiments. The very foundations of the lodge seemed to tremble, as if the mountain itself rejected the abominations that had been created within its depths. With a final, desperate act, Dr. Weber unleashed the full force of the mountain's fury, triggering an avalanche that buried the lodge and its secrets beneath tons of snow and ice. She had escaped the deadly clutches of Count Erich, but the lodge remained a tomb of scientific curiosity gone horribly awry. As Dr. Weber made her way back to civilization, she knew that the dangers of unchecked ambition, the clash between science and the supernatural, and the consequences of tampering with the unknown were lessons that would stay with her forever. The Swiss Alps, once a place of wonder and beauty, now held a chilling reminder of the perils that lay hidden in the pursuit of knowledge. In the heart of a modern, decaying urban setting, an abandoned asylum stood as a testament to forgotten horrors. Its crumbling facade and shattered windows concealed the darkness that had once resided within its walls. In this forsaken place, our story unfolds, with Sarah, a fearless paranormal investigator, and Vincent, a tormented vampire seeking redemption. Sarah was no stranger to the paranormal. Armed with her recording equipment and a heart unburdened by fear, she had ventured into countless haunted locations, searching for evidence of the supernatural. The asylum, however, was unlike any place she had encountered before. The moment she stepped through its decaying doors, she felt the weight of the asylum's history bearing down on her. The air was thick with the echoes of past atrocities, the walls seeming to close in with each passing step. As she explored the dark corridors and shadowy cells, the sense of madness and despair that had plagued the asylum's inhabitants seeped into her very soul. Sarah's investigations soon revealed a history of torment and suffering. The asylum had been a place of cruel experiments, its inmates subjected to unspeakable horrors in the name of science. The memories of the past seemed to linger within the asylum's walls, manifesting as eerie echoes of past atrocities. It was during one of her investigations that Sarah first encountered Vincent. He appeared as a tormented apparition, his eyes filled with an unspeakable sadness. Vincent was a vampire, cursed with immortality and burdened by the weight of his own sins. In life, Vincent had been a doctor at the asylum, a man who had sworn to do no harm. But the lure of immortality had driven him to tamper with forces beyond his understanding. He had become a vampire, a creature neither fully alive nor dead, and the guilt of his actions had tormented him for centuries. Vincent yearned for redemption, a chance to atone for the horrors he had unleashed. He believed that if he could help Sarah uncover the truth about the asylum's past and the tortured souls that still lingered within, he could find a way to free himself from his curse. Sarah, drawn to Vincent's tortured soul, agreed to work with him. Together, they delved deeper into the asylum's history, uncovering the stories of the inmates who had suffered at the hands of sadistic doctors. They encountered eerie manifestations, apparitions of the tormented souls that still roamed the asylum's halls, their agonized cries echoing in the darkness. But as they drew closer to the truth, the supernatural forces within the asylum grew more malevolent. Sarah and Vincent found themselves locked in a harrowing battle against the vengeful spirits that sought to keep their secrets buried forever. In a climactic showdown within the asylum's depths, Sarah and Vincent faced the full force of the supernatural. The walls seemed to close in around them, the very air crackling with malevolent energy. Apparitions of past inmates materialized, their eyes filled with rage and torment. As the battle raged on, Sarah and Vincent struggled to hold onto their sanity. The asylum's haunted history threatened to consume them, its darkness seeping into their souls. But they fought with a determination born of desperation, determined to uncover the truth and free the tormented spirits that still lingered within. In the end, it was a sacrifice that brought redemption. Vincent, consumed by guilt and a desire to atone for his sins, made the ultimate sacrifice to free the asylum's spirits. With a selfless act of bravery, he banished the malevolent forces that had plagued the asylum for centuries, breaking the curse that had bound him. The asylum, once a place of unspeakable horrors, now stood silent and still. The tortured souls of its past inhabitants had found peace at last, their anguished cries replaced by a haunting, melancholic silence. As Sarah left the asylum behind, she knew that the thin line between sanity and madness had been tested, and the ghosts of the past had been laid to rest. The search for redemption had brought an end to the asylum's torment, and Vincent, though lost to her forever, had found the salvation he so desperately sought. In the Pacific Northwest, where the dense fog rolled in like a shroud, there lay a coastal town that harbored a sinister secret. It was a place of eerie landscapes and hidden mysteries, where the whispers of the sea seemed to carry the town's darkest secrets. In this coastal town, our story begins with Detective Ana Ramirez, a seasoned investigator, and Adrian, a vampire with a sinister agenda. Detective Ramirez had always prided herself on her ability to solve even the most baffling of cases. Her reputation for solving mysteries had earned her respect in the police department, but nothing could have prepared her for the darkness that lurked in the coastal town. It all began with the discovery of the first murder, a gruesome scene that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened officers. The victim's body had been drained of blood, the pale skin a stark contrast to the crimson stains that marred the crime scene. As Anna delved into the investigation, she was met with a wall of silence from the townspeople. They seemed to know more than they were willing to share, their faces twisted with fear whenever she asked about the murders. It was as if they were hiding something, a secret that lay buried beneath the surface of the town's fog-covered streets. Anna's search for answers led her to a series of disturbing discoveries. She uncovered a hidden society of vampires that had existed in the town for centuries, lurking in the shadows and preying on the unsuspecting. They had created a web of power and influence, with their dark agenda threatening to engulf the entire town. Adrian, a charismatic and enigmatic vampire, emerged as a central figure in Anna's investigation. He seemed to revel in the chaos and fear that gripped the town, his sinister agenda driving him to commit acts of unspeakable cruelty. Anna knew that she had to stop him before more lives were lost. As Anna delved deeper into the vampire underworld, she found herself drawn into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. The vampires seemed to anticipate her every move, their supernatural abilities giving them the upper hand. She had to rely on her instincts and determination to uncover the truth and bring Adrian to justice. The coastal town itself seemed to conspire against Anna. The fog that shrouded the streets obscured her vision, and the eerie landscapes held secrets that seemed to shift with the changing tides. It was a place where reality blurred with the supernatural, where the line between the living and the undead grew thin. In a tense showdown in the town's underground tunnels, Anna confronted Adrian, their fates intertwined in a battle for survival. The tunnels were a labyrinth of darkness and dread, echoing with the whispers of past victims. It was a place where the corrupting influence of power and the pursuit of justice clashed in a final, climactic confrontation. As the battle raged on, Anna discovered a shocking revelation about her own connection to the vampires. She had been unknowingly drawn into their world, her own past holding the key to their dark agenda. It was a revelation that threatened to shatter her resolve, but Anna knew that she had to stay true to her pursuit of justice. In the end, it was a sacrifice that brought an end to the terror that had plagued the coastal town. Anna's determination and unwavering sense of justice prevailed, and the vampires were vanquished, their dark influence lifted from the town's streets. But the memory of the coastal town's horrors would haunt Anna forever. She knew that the darkness that hides in plain sight could take many forms, and that the pursuit of justice in the face of the supernatural required a strength and resolve that few could muster. As Anna left the town behind, she couldn't help but wonder how many other places held similar secrets, how many other detectives would be drawn into the darkness that lurked in the shadows. The coastal town's mysteries had been unraveled, but Anna knew that the darkness would always find a way to resurface, and that the line between the living and the undead was thinner than anyone could imagine. In a forgotten town, hidden away from the world, there stood a Gothic, labyrinthine library, a vast repository of knowledge and secrets. Its towering shelves held countless tomes, their pages heavy with the weight of centuries. In this labyrinth of knowledge, our story begins with Isabella, a bookish librarian, and Count Lucian, a vampire seeking forbidden knowledge. Isabella had always found solace among the musty, ancient pages of the library. It was a place where the past whispered in hushed tones, and the secrets of the world were hidden within its labyrinthine corridors. Her quiet life as the librarian of this forgotten town was one of solitude and contentment, but all that changed with the arrival of Count Lucian. He was a figure shrouded in mystery, his dark eyes filled with a hunger for knowledge that sent shivers down Isabella's spine. Lucian sought a rare and forbidden tome, a book rumored to hold the key to unlocking unimaginable power. As Isabella reluctantly assisted Lucian in his search, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing with forces beyond her understanding. The library held many secrets, and some were best left untouched, but Lucian's obsession with the forbidden knowledge within the elusive tome drove him forward. Undeterred by the danger it posed, their search led them deeper into the labyrinth of the library, where hidden passages and esoteric texts revealed themselves like pieces of a sinister puzzle. Isabella realized that the library itself seemed to conspire with Lucian, its walls shifting and rearranging to keep its darkest secrets hidden. As the search for the forbidden tome intensified, Isabella's sense of foreboding grew. She knew that the pursuit of knowledge at any cost could lead to dire consequences, and she was determined to protect the library's secrets from falling into the wrong hands. In a climactic showdown amidst the towering shelves of the library, Isabella and Lucian faced off, their fates intertwined in a battle of wits and wills. The very atmosphere seemed charged with the power of the arcane as they grappled for control of the forbidden tome. But in a chilling revelation, Isabella discovered the true nature of the tome, a dark grimoire that held not only knowledge but a malevolent presence. It hungered for souls, promising unimaginable power in exchange for their sacrifice. Isabella realized that Lucian was not merely seeking knowledge. He sought to unlock the forbidden power contained within the grimoire, and he was willing to pay any price. The danger of unlocking the forbidden loomed large, and Isabella knew that she had to stop him at any cost. In a desperate act of bravery, Isabella confronted Lucian, determined to protect the world from the dark forces that threatened to be unleashed. Their battle raged on, books falling from the shelves and ancient scrolls unraveling in a whirlwind of chaos. In the end, it was a sacrifice that halted the darkness. Isabella managed to wrest the grimoire from Lucian's grasp, sealing it away in the depths of the library, where its power could no longer harm the world. But the cost of her victory was high, and Isabella would forever carry the weight of the knowledge she had gained. As Isabella emerged from the labyrinthine library, she knew that the consequences of tampering with the arcane were not to be taken lightly. The pursuit of knowledge, while noble, could lead to the darkest of places, and the forbidden must remain hidden for a reason. The library would forever hold its secrets, and Isabella would be its guardian, protecting the world from the dangers of unlocking the unknown.